Coming up here on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now, with the NFL trade deadline coming up the first week of November, I'm going to explain why Howie Roseman should call the Cleveland Browns and try to trade for Myles Garrett. Also, what the Eagles could get if Haason Reddick is traded to a team in the NFC. Philadelphia cannot trade for Haason Reddick because of NFL rules, but they could get some compensation if he's traded to an NFC team. What do I mean by that? Stay tuned to find out. Let's first hit you with the programming reminder. Myself, Chase Sr., producer Chip, we will be live right here on Eagles Now for a Week 7 watch party. We go live for every single game here on the channel. Eagles, Giants, coming your way from MetLife Stadium. The show begins with an hour pregame show where we'll preview this game at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Then during the game, instant reaction, live play-by-play, audience interaction, super chat giveaways. We'll be taking down some beers with Eagles fans who watch this show from worldwide. Hit that sub button, and I hope to see you there. So I want to begin with this talking point right here because it sets the foundation and sets up a pathway for the conversation that I want to have today. Eagles general manager Howie Roseman, hanging out here to my right, is always lurking. And Howie Roseman is always looking to acquire stars, whether that be via trade, whether that be via free agency. And thanks to the Eagles having one of the best owners in the sport in Jeffrey Lurie, he gives Howie the leeway, the flexibility, and the ability to make moves how he sees fit in order to improve his football team. And man, trading for Myles Garrett would drastically improve this Eagles team for this year and for the years to come. And why would Cleveland trade Myles Garrett? Well, you think about the current status of that organization. Their general manager is Andrew Berry, who used to be working with Philadelphia under Howie Roseman. He's made some good moves. He's made some bad moves, and Browns fans are starting to get very frustrated with Andrew Berry. Like Howie, very financially savvy, but some of his football moves have not panned out, like the Deshaun Watson trade. More on that in a moment. But Cleveland this week, they're 1-5 after losing to Philadelphia. They're the only team in the NFL that hasn't scored more than 18 points in a game. Their offense is historically bad, and because their offense is so bad, their defense isn't able to hold up for a complete 60-minute ball game because they're not playing complimentary football. And after the Browns traded Amari Cooper, does that signal that the Browns are going to tear it down, start over, rebuild, and trade a player like Myles Garrett, who they could get a bunch of draft picks for in order to improve the roster? As for Deshaun Watson, he has been so horrendous since that trade from the Texans to the Browns after he had to sit out for a year that I think it goes down as the worst trade and the worst contract in NFL history because that contract, well over $200 million, was fully guaranteed, and his cap hit next year is about to go up even more. As for Myles Garrett, still a pretty young player and a special player as we know. 28 years old, the first overall pick out of Texas A&M in 2017. He's coming off a 2023 season in which he was named the Defensive Player of the Year, the best award that you could get as a defensive player because defensive players aren't going to win an NFL MVP award. And his career has been really special so far. He is a three-time first-team All-Pro, a two-time second-team All-Pro, and a five-time Pro Bowler. A lot of accolades for a player who was drafted in 2017. And his career numbers, he is off to one of the best starts that any defensive end has gotten off to in any NFL career. He has played 106 games. He has started 104 of them. So he was a plug-and-play impact guy, high level, right from the jump. And in those 106 total games, he already has 92.5 sacks. He has 180 quarterback hits in those 106 games. So he's hitting the quarterback more than once every single game. As we saw against Philadelphia, he's really good against the run. How many times as the backside defensive end was he able to come up with the TFL, tackling Saquon Barkley from that backside? He's so good in all phases of the game, and he has 19 forced fumbles. And over his last 4 years, Myles Garrett has not slowed down. And because he's such a physical freak, a unique one-of-one athletic specimen, And because he's been so dominant, I don't see how he slows down. And honestly, he's making $25 million per year. That's a pretty affordable contract considering the high-level impact that he has on the defensive side of the rock. And that sack production, it's been steady throughout his career. 16, 16, 14 his last 3 years, and so far this year. He was hobbled a little bit to start the year with a knee injury, but still, in 6 games played, he has 4 sacks, 8 quarterback hits, 6 TFLs, 2 forced fumbles, and last year he was the DPOY. And we saw on Sunday what type of player he is. He's so strong. He has an array of pass rushing moves. He can uproot some of the best offensive tackles in the game with strength. He can get by those offensive tackles with speed, bend, twitch. He could take on double teams. He is the premier edge rusher in this sport. And when you think about the top players at his position across the NFL, it's Myles Garrett, it's TJ Watt, it's Max Crosby, it's Nick Bosa. They really are special players. And his sacks by season, like he comes out of Texas A&M as a rookie, and he has 7 sacks year 1. Year 2, he really breaks out with 13.5 during his sophomore campaign. In 2019, 10 sacks, 2020, 12, 2021, 16 sacks, 2022, 16, 2023, 14, and so far this year, 4. And if Myles Garrett wants to play for a long time, and obviously we're not sure what his interests are and what his plans are nowadays with more of an importance emphasized on health, players are calling it quits a little bit earlier, and Bruce Smith, who is the NFL leader in career sacks with 200, played 19 years in the National Football League. That is extremely rare, and from the start of his career all the way until the end, Bruce Smith was causing terror for opposing quarterbacks. So he played 19 years, and he had 200 sacks. But look at where Myles Garrett is in his 8th year. Myles Garrett has 92.5 sacks. Let's say that he gets to 100 by the end of this year. He is on track to become the NFL sacks leader in the history of the National Football League. That's pretty special right there. Now, would it cost a pretty penny for Howie Roseman and the Eagles to trade for Myles Garrett? No question. But you know what's priceless? A second Lombardi trophy in Philadelphia and another parade down Broad Street. And Myles Garrett as defensive end, stalwart, superstar for this Eagles defense. As for some contract details here, trading defensive end Myles Garrett, the new team would acquire $806,000 in guaranteed money this year, $19.8 million non-guaranteed money in 2025. 2026, $25 million in non-guaranteed money. The Browns' dead cap charge, 19.3 in 2024. It's lofty. And in 2025, 36.2. That's a lot. But if a team rebuilds, they tear it down, and they just want to start over in general with Kevin Stefanski and a new quarterback and Andrew Berry as the general manager, will they take multiple picks in order to move off of Myles Garrett? It's unlikely. This would fit under the billing of a dream scenario and a blockbuster trade target. But if I'm Howie Roseman, I'm making the call. So naturally, I ask you this. Who is your dream trade target for the Eagles? Drop me a name or names down below in the comment section right now. We'll talk Haason Reddick coming up here just around the corner, but first, today's Eagles Now, sponsored by our great friends at Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy, where you pick 2 or more players, you choose more or less on their projected stats, and you're guaranteed to win big-time money. Right now, Prize Picks is running a special where if you play $5, you get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And during the month of September, there was that Caleb Williams special where he had to throw for more than a half yard. Well, how about this? Anthony Edwards, more than a half point. That's all that he needs to score. He needs to put the biscuit in the basket one time or hit a free throw to get 1 win on your Prize Picks lineup. What a phenomenal square. That's 99% off. So pick more, pick less, pick Prize Picks Run your game all year long with Prize Picks. Head to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use that code CLNS. Get $50 when you play 5. That information is hanging out down in the comments section and in the description of today's Eagles Now. Second part of today's show. What the Eagles can get if Haason Reddick is traded to an NFC counterpart. Now, as we know, Philadelphia is not going to be able to trade for Haason Reddick. We've talked about this scenario before. We talked about the news that was broken on September 30th by Ian Rappaport, the Jets situation with Haason Reddick, he said at the time. You see the timestamp at the bottom with Haason Reddick. Still has no resolution. And some wondered if the Jets could trade him back to the Eagles. It turns out, per NFL rules, not possible. Not. Teams can't trade a player, then reacquire him via a trade until 2 years elapse. So Reddick won't head back to Philly. And I kind of laughed when I saw this, and then I did some more thinking. Nobody knew that information. Nobody had broken that information. Even when everybody was talking about Haason Reddick perhaps getting traded to the Philadelphia Eagles from the New York Jets and Philadelphia reacquiring him, especially with Bryce Huff off to a slow start, although he was much better against Cleveland, nobody had said, per NFL rules, that can't happen. I think that somebody in the league office told Ian Rappaport, look, I know some people are talking about this, but we just checked the NFL rules. It's not even possible. So that definitely tells me that Howie Roseman called up the New York Jets, his former buddy in Joe Douglas, who used to be a member of the front office, just like Andrew Berry, because the Eagles do a great job of developing front office members and coaches and members of the organization from top to bottom, and Howie definitely checked in to see what's up. But even though the Eagles cannot trade for Haason Reddick, the value that they get from the New York Jets can still increase. And here's how. Josina Anderson, NFL Insider. In other Jets headlines, she said earlier this week, I'm told the Eagles will get a 2026 second-round pick from the Jets if Haason Reddick gets traded to an NFC team, per multiple sources. That's the other condition as part of that conditional third, which could become a second. The other condition was the sack total and games played, I believe. So conditions, plural, not singular. So that's the other condition, she said, involved in the trade for Reddick to the Jets that was newly reported in the tweet below 2 weeks ago. As for the latest on Reddick, his former agency was CAA, very popular agency in the sports industry. They let him go because he's the only player in the NFL who's been holding out, and he's lost millions of dollars from missing training camp practices to preseason games to regular season games. There was a report that he kind of stiffed a business partner out of a lot of money and hired goons to intimidate him because the business that Reddick's dad and him were running wasn't making any money, so they hired somebody else. The business became successful thanks to that business partner, and then Reddick refused to pay him. Who knows if it's going to be true? That's going to be taken to court, but messy regardless. But Reddick then, after he was let go by CAA, hired Drew Rosenhaus, one of the top agents in the game. And earlier this week, the Jets gave Reddick and his camp, Drew Rosenhaus, permission to seek a trade. Now, I looked at all the teams in the NFL who either have money or a need and are in a competitive spot where they would make a move in a trade for Haason Reddick, knowing that he's disgruntled, knowing that he wants more money, whether that be guaranteed or a contract extension. And these are the teams that I came up with. And guess what? A lot of the teams on this list are in the NFC. So if the Jets were to trade Reddick to an NFC team, that 2026 pick becomes a second per Josina Anderson. The Detroit Lions just lost Aiden Hutchinson, who maybe was on his way to winning Defensive Player of the Year after suffering that gruesome broken leg against the Dallas Cowboys. They had already lost Marcus Davenport earlier this year. So they desperately need a pass rusher, and they're playing the best ball among any team in the NFC right now. So they could be all in on Haason Reddick, and Dan Campbell doesn't really give a damn what a player's personality is because he knows that player can fit inside Dan Campbell's locker room. The San Francisco 49ers are another team, win now mode. They have the most cap space in the NFL. Opposite of Nick Bosa, they could use another edge, but if Bosa or Leonard Floyd were to get hurt, then they're really desperate for an edge rusher. because they don't have a lot of depth there. The Atlanta Falcons, they're a good team. They're competing. They could perhaps win the NFC South. A couple of weeks ago, they came through with a huge win on that last-second drive by Kirk Cousins to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They did trade for Matthew Judon. They could use another edge rusher. The Washington Commanders, leading the NFC East right now, one of the surprise teams in the NFL. They could use edge help. Of course, you have to factor in the Arizona Cardinals. Haason Reddick was 4th in Defensive Player of the Year voting in 2022 and had 16 sacks under Jonathan Gannon. And Reddick out of Temple got drafted by Arizona. So there's coach and organizational familiarity there between Arizona and Reddick. The Colts, Shane Steichen is their head coach. They could use somebody coming off the edge to rush the quarterback. Las Vegas Raiders, they could use some edge help. And then the Buffalo Bills factor into the equation as well. They're a playoff team, an AFC contender, and right now Von Miller is suspended and he's old. So right there, that's 8 total teams on my list, and 5 of them are teams inside the NFC. Jets, do the right thing. Trade them to an NFC team so that the Eagles can get that second-round pick. Sincerely, Chase Irwin Sr., Philadelphia Eagles now. Where will Reddick get traded to? Drop us a team name down below. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Peace.